right, we're back with another episode of Wash in the Wild, and episode 4. Sorry, and it is Christmas time, as you can tell. It is the 23rd. We've switched to a Tuesday from a Wednesday because we all have families, and I have fish to catch in the morning. Is anyone else in here going fishing tomorrow?
I'm going to work.
I am not going to work, and I'm going to be maybe frying fish, but I kind of doubt it. That's what I hope it to be, but I don't think it's going to happen.
No, I'm not going fishing.
All right, we were kind of going around the table there. But good to be back. I think one thing we all wanted to talk about a little bit more was some times where we had kind of made some bad decisions early on in the not early on, I guess. Matt's been around for a while, so might be later on for him. But yeah, some times where we probably did some stupid stuff in the wild or in the outdoors. And
hey, can I interrupt? Speaking of stupid stuff,
yeah,
did you guys watch that video that I sent you of the grizzly in Yellowstone?
My dad's also pretty old, so he doesn't have Instagram.
I had not, but I can only imagine.
I saw.
Listen, if it was, well, it still is survival of the fittest, but this video, you can go find it. I guess it's on Instagram. I found it through a news feed, but it is what looks to be a subadult grizzly on a fresh elk kill, and there are people taking photographs of the situation within what looks to be 30 yards. It's hard to tell from the camera, but
it's definitely close.
You want to talk about stupid. I'm sorry, but that is just absolutely stupid. The adults there need to be polite, their head examined because they're teaching their kids to be next to an apex predator that's on a fresh kill, and especially a subadult that doesn't really understand how things work just yet. They haven't figured it all out. I don't know how much more dangerous a situation that you could, maybe a sow with little baby cubs, but we see this. I've seen grizzly attacks all summer long, all year long, pretty much once a week, it seems like, in the United States. And those were mainly because somebody, stumbled into a bear and spooked it. This are people making a decision to get out of their vehicle right next to this grizzly on a fresh kill with their kids. And it is the most ridiculous thing that I've seen a lot of these videos, and it's usually bison. Dan was talking about it earlier, or an elk or something like that. No less dangerous, but this is a grizzly on a fresh kill. And yes, those grizzlies in Yellowstone are probably desensitized to humans because they see them all the time. And
well, that can make it worse, though, too.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Well, yeah,
it's still a wild animal. I mean,
but from the grizzlies' perspective, they're used to people, but I just don't even understand. And I think that's something that I think we've, almost humanized some of these apex predators that were once threatened and endangered, and now they're coming back, and people see these things as pets, I guess. I don't understand. It's not a teddy bear. Within seconds, somebody could get killed or injured very severely in a heartbeat. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No. It's good. It's a good public service announcement.
It kind of goes along with what I think where you're going today, but.
Well, they obviously didn't see that bear take down that elk or whatever it was eating on, right? Because I think if you see that, hopefully there's enough going on upstairs to know, whoa, I'm not really that much different from an elk. In fact, I'm a lot smaller. So, right.
A lot slower and not as tough.
Yeah, not even close. So,
I saw that yesterday or whatever, and I don't understand. I mean, maybe that's because people aren't as closely related to the outdoors as we all used to be, but I don't want to be in that situation. So, I mean, even we were in Yellowstone. I don't even know, how old were you? Like,
I was in high school.
high
Like
school.
15, 16, something like that.
And we were driving through, and here's a sow with little bitty cubs and people in a half circle around it within probably 10 yards of her with her little cubs. And, it's kind of like, can we get out and take pictures? And I'm like, no, you're not getting out of this vehicle. I'm not getting out of this vehicle. And that was a black bear. I mean, but sows with little cubs,
Well, we did see a grizzly on that trip too with cubs.
yeah, but
The
it
cars
wasn't.
were parked all alongside the road. But if it provides any perspective, a friend of mine grew up close to the park, and somebody he grew up with now works, or at last I knew anyway, works as a park ranger, but specifically focused on reducing bear and human encounters. Like these guys, as far as I understand, these guys literally like go around with non-lethals and probably some lethals as well, and they track these bears, follow these bears around, and try to keep them away from the parts of the park where people are at. So, as cool as it might be to see a bear, close to the road or close to some boardwalk or wherever it is that you're hanging out, it's not something that the people that know the most about the area want to happen. Like they're actively trying to avoid it. So that's what you should be doing too. I mean, it's one thing, like we saw a grizzly on that same trip that was, I don't know, maybe half a mile away, and everybody was stopped on the side of the road with spotting scopes and binoculars and cameras with big lenses. And that's another thing, because there's a whole lot of time there. That bear likely doesn't even know that anybody's paying attention to it. But yeah, I mean, I think just if somebody has a job to try to prevent those types of situations, that's not a situation you should, try to find
Actively
yourself in.
pursue,
Yeah.
And teach
so,
your kids that it's
Right.
okay. Because by you allowing it, you're teaching your kids that it's okay. And sorry, Gentry, I just
No, it's good.
that popped into my head, and I
good
just
that you're passionate
was
about
like, I want to say something because it just makes me mad.
Yeah. I mean, you're very adamant about it in the text group. But on that happy note, I've never walked up on any grizzly bears, but once upon a time, I was about, I don't know, like 8 years old, and I don't even remember where we were fishing. This was like a long time ago. And we got all our stuff out, and we'd went in the morning, I'm pretty sure, because we were picking up, and it was like midday or whatever. And Dad was outside picking up all the tip-ups, and I'm 8 and my brother's 7, so we're just like sitting inside the house, just like all the rods were out, and it was just like the heater and us left in there, so we were just like staying warm while he's picking up everything. And we were being kids. We were just like I think we were kicking around the snow, like the half melted snow that was inside the house at each other, and just messing around. And for some reason, we decided a good idea was to fill like the 4 holes we had inside the house, just fill them in with snow, because we wanted to see if they would freeze before like we left. And just as we were taking the house, or just as my dad was like taking out the outside stakes of the house, I was trying to help him like hold it from the inside or something, and my foot went straight through a hole. And my foot was small enough where it went all the way up to like my like mid thigh area, and that water was cold. And I was like, I remember I like pulled myself, and my brother's just staring at me. He's like, and I was like, I kind of just looked at him, and I was like, I don't know what to do. And so I like walk outside and around the house, and Dad's like messing with a stake, and he kind of looks up and he's like, what are you doing? And I was like my leg's wet, like I all my stuff is wet, like I'm wearing like, and they weren't like nice snow pants, but they were like, I don't know, they absorbed water quite well. They weren't like one of the nice water repelling pairs that everyone has now. And I was like, I stepped in a hole, and like I don't remember what lake we were on, but we were a long ways from the boat ramp where we parked. Like it was probably a mile. If you remember what I'm talking about.
I remember very vividly. And it was, we probably shouldn't have been out there. It was like 10 below.
It was very cold.
It was, yeah, you missed that part. It wasn't my proudest moment as a dad, but, and it was past the point of no return it was windy. I had already had the tent basically taken down.
Yeah,
so there wasn't any putting it back up. It was just like, here's the keys, go. Didn't have a car starter, didn't have anything, and get to the vehicle. Which, thank God you didn't like lock us out of the vehicles or anything like that. Eli and I, yeah. Oh, I'll go ahead.
So, anyways, he gives me the truck key or the truck keys. And he's like, get back to the he's like, get back, start, like just like keep yourself warm. And so I'm like walking back, and like it was light enough, or it was light so I could see like where the car was or whatever. And I'm walking, and I walked within like 50 yards, like 3 different groups of people, and they all just kind of looked at me as I'm like, my leg had started to get like hard to bend, so I'm like pirate legging, like around, like swinging my foot out and around. And they're just kind of looking at me, and I was like, I like waved and then kept walking. And I get back to the truck, and I couldn't figure out how to get started right away because I think I needed to press the brake or something. And it kept saying press brake or whatever, and I just couldn't figure it out. And then after like 5 minutes, and my dad's seat being like soaked, I finally figured it out. And then I don't even remember how long I sat in there, but it was a while before I started to get feeling like the lower part of my leg. And my dad finally gets back with my brother, and he's pulling the sled, and he's like, "How you doing?" And I was like, I think I'm good. Like, he's like, have you taken anything off? I was like, no. So I was sitting on the seat with my wet snow pant, or my half wet snow pants, and like the seat was wet, and it was still kind of cold in the truck because I guess it hadn't been that long. And but luckily I didn't lose any toes or extremities. And yeah.
And we didn't get stuck getting out of there too. Yeah, that was I forgot about that one. It was
an experience.
That was one of those when I don't know if you've been like this, but you go a place with your kids are young enough that they're not going to be able to help me out with anything right now. I mean, maybe shovel a little bit, but no pushing, no nothing. So anyways, yeah, that was a good one.
Does anyone else have a story in here about a accident or mistake in the?
So who'd you thank? You made it back to the truck.
I thanked God, and I thanked my dad for having a warm truck. I didn't thank God immediately because I was a little kid. I was just like trying to not die. But after I was like, yes. I think I remember praying that night, and I was like, thanks for. I think I literally said thanks for not letting me freeze, were my exact words.
As soon as that truck warmed up, though, you should have stripped those clothes off.
Yeah, I realized that. Believe me, my dad, he let me know.
Yeah, that was when I was maybe a little bit more intense. But I suppose if I was that intense, I should have gotten you back.
Yeah, he's grown calmer in his age.
Yeah, I'm trying to be calmer. Oh, you had it figured out.
Yeah, as soon as the gray comes out, it takes out some anger with it.
Oh.
It was a good experience, though. He's sharing all the things he learned from that.
Yeah.
So.
And there to this day, don't fill holes up. That's one of my pet peeves, and people go around filling holes because it's like, oh, that's gonna happen. I mean,
I knew exactly what he was where he was going with that, and I've never heard that before. But as soon as you said you were gonna fill the holes up, I'm like, he stepped in a hole.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And my foot was just small enough where it went all the way through. Cause now my foot doesn't even go through the hole, but oh no, it went and my leg when I stepped was perfectly straight, so it's not even my knee caught, it was all the way in the water.
Mm-hmm. Luckily you didn't break anything. That would have been miserable.
That would have been bad because then I would have had to really hobble back.
So would you put him in the sled if he'd have broken the bone?
No, there was no room. I had a borrowed tent. I didn't even think I had an auger at that point. Yeah, that was.
No, we
that
had
was
an
a long
auger. There was a
time ago.
hole.
Well, it wasn't mine.
Ugh.
That was doing it old school with my hands with the manual auger. So, anyways, I don't know that I really have any near death experiences. I've just been over my ski tips. I've had a couple situations where I've been stuck and just been we're never getting out of this. This is going to be many, many hours of pointless manual labor to get out. Those aren't really that fun of stories to tell. Although, I guess a shout out to my friends, the Hankies. Maybe we'll have them on the show. That was I was I don't know if that was you or I was telling you guys this that. As you get a little older, you just kind of figure things out, or you avoid situations. But there's always that next generation up that just can figure stuff out, And this was 2 years ago, and my buddy and I we had some he had a trailer, and we were pulling a side by side off the ice, and he took a bad angle and just got buried, just stuck in 2 feet of snow. One of those deals where the more you dig, you just sink down even more, and we're need to go up a pretty sizable hill, and we're just not making it anywhere. You can't barely back up because he's getting stuck the more, and everything we do just seemed to make it worse. And finally his dad came over, and he had a wheelhouse behind him, and he came, pulled us out going backwards, and this is where I found the value of it. You can't have too much tow rope. They must have put together easily 100 feet of tow rope, easily. And that's really the only reason we got out, because shoveling wasn't going to do it. Either it was too much weight. And so he got us pulled out, and then his dad backed up, took a good, didn't go crazy fast at it, but fast enough that he was going to make it up the hill. Got up the top of the hill, took a way better line, and then just proceeded to pull us out. And it was, my buddy had 3 girls with him, and it was like, it was awesome that they were there. They were awesome. They were in good spirits the whole time. But after we got out, it was like, Daddy, I gotta go pee right now. those poor girls, because it was like 2 hours.
Yeah.
So
luckily, I was not there.
Yeah, you were not. That was the same lake where I blew out the diff on my truck. So yeah, that's fun lakes.
Maybe that's God telling you don't go fish
Well,
the lake.
yeah.
Well, luckily, we just went there 2 days ago and didn't catch a thing. So.
Nothing.
Again.
You didn't get stuck, though.
No.
That's the important
Didn't
part.
get stuck.
What do you guys? I feel like you guys got some more states to go over.
I don't have that many, but you probably have more than all of us combined. So, of
Well,
those
you
types of
making
stories.
a comment about his long-winded years in the outdoors.
Well, if the shoe fits, it was more along
Ugh.
the lines of, I know that he's been a little bit more of a risk taker in the past, which has led up to me not being as much of a one because of the warnings that I've received. But that's, somebody's got to have that experience. So
Yeah, I was thinking about this, those times that have happened. There's been quite a few. I mean, I fell out of a tree hanging a deer stand. Thankfully, right before I hit the ground, I was upside down. When just before I hit the ground, my right leg hooked on a branch, and there was another branch that caught my foot, and it stopped me. So the guy that was with me, he's standing there, and I'm upside down looking at him, and he's like, "Are you okay?" And I said, "I am now that I didn't hit the ground." But that was free climbing, not using any harness or anything like that to hang a tree stand. I mean, I've been seriously charged by bear once. That was, I take some responsibility for that. I didn't have a gun, and friend shot a bear, and I walked up to the other bear and didn't expect this bear to be as aggressive as the one that was alive, be as aggressive as it was. But the one that I look back on that is literally, oh God, that I survived. I think I was 22, might have been 21. I was doing deer research in the Kilkenny National Forest in the wintertime. So
That's northern New Hampshire.
Oh yeah, sorry, northern.
Yeah,
New Hampshire.
I didn't know
Thank
that.
you. Thank you for
about
that.
to ask, I'm not gonna lie. Thank you, Ryer.
I don't remember the size of it. I want to say it's like 78,000 acres or something. There's not a lot of access to it, mountainous, and so we would release deer, pen raised deer into the wild, and let them acclimate, and then we would track food consumption and activity rates and energy consumption and stuff like that. Anyway, so when we first put the deer out, we'd basically go in and find them, just to check on them, make sure they're okay, keep them so that we could still interact with them. Most of them turn wild within a couple of weeks, and you can't get near them. But one of the technicians that was working with me, I was training him, so I was taking him around. There's no GP. We're not using GPS. We didn't have Onyx, none of those things. I mean, this is just you navigating. It's cold, snow. We'd gone in and found 3 different deer and made a giant loop and spent pretty much the entire day in there. And we're coming out, and I'm like, well, we're not going to go back the way we came because it's going to be an extra couple of miles to get back to the truck. And I'm like, we could go straight to the truck if we can find a place to cross the river. And so we come up on the river, and we're walking the river trying to find a place where there's, didn't think there was a riffle. And so I told, the guy's name was Tom, I said, Tom, you stay back here, let me go out and check the ice. And so I'm walking out, and I'm kind of checking the ice, stomping as I went, and It's good. It seemed good and solid. Had snow on it, so you can't really see the ice. And I turned to him and I said, "Yeah, I think we're good to go. Just don't get right on top of me." And turned back and took a step and went under. And so, like literally all the way,
like head to toe,
all the way under.
Holy smokes!
And we carried guns because coyotes would harass these deer quite a bit up there. And as soon as my feet hit the bottom, I just pushed off and went up, and I had my gun in my hand. I think I was trying to protect my gun. I don't know, but
that's a valid
I
reaction.
shoved my gun up, and Tom grabbed the gun barrel and dragged me out on the
So it was
ice.
deep.
Oh yeah,
Like, whew.
And you're
Yeah.
coming off a mountain, so that water's moving pretty fast too.
Yeah.
and so stupid. I mean, probably not smartest thing. Probably should have taken the long way back around where we knew we could cross, and but so we're down around 0 degrees. Back then, I wore wool, right? So wool pants, cotton long johns, wool jacket, cotton shirts, stuff like that. And so get out, obviously, and no matches, no lighter, none of that stuff. And it's like, we got to get to the truck. So basically kept checking the river, found a place to get across. And I was getting to the point where my body was shutting down because my clothes were frozen, like solid.
You also got all that extra weight from the water.
And so, I don't know if I told Tom or Tom, said, "Give me your keys." And he just took off, basically running, started, got to our vehicle, started it up, and then came back to get me. And, we had face mask on, like ski mask or whatever on because it was really cold. And barely made it to the truck. And, first thing, get to the truck, strip clothes off, couldn't get them off. They're frozen solid. I can't get my ski mask off because the ski mask is frozen to my beard. My hair's soaked. Everything's just frozen solid. You can't feel anything, right? Nothing. You can't. I don't know how to describe it. It's like maybe the needles from when your arm falls asleep or something like that. I got in the truck, and it was funny because Tom had to tip the seat all the way back so I could get in there because I was like, literally like I had a board up my back. Made it back, and I was fine. We did not have a shower. We stayed in the Forest Service cabin, so we had an outhouse, and so there's no way to get into a shower and just crank it up and stand in it, So just heated water on the stove and stood outside, and Tom poured water over me, try to help get the body temperature back up. But yeah, I mean, I should, because there's a current there too. And so how I came right back up the same spot that I went down, and for him, because he was probably 10 feet behind me. And for him, I'm like, did you just automatically run up to the hole? Because that's not a good idea either, because we both could have been under. And he's like, he goes, I don't even know what I did. He said, I just know that your shotgun came out, and I just grabbed it and pulled you up. Now, loaded gun, too. But
Life over
Pick
limb.
and choose your battles there.
yeah, I mean, you're 21, 22 years old, you're invincible, right? So you do really, I mean, at least I did, a lot of pretty dumb things. Not thinking about that because it's like, it's just a little bit of water. It's not that big a deal until it happens to you. And I actually fell through about a month later in a different part of it was the next year. It was the next year because I'd gotten, so neoprene was starting to become a thing. Like these long johns are really tight and everything, and not cotton. And so I'd bought some of that stuff, doing research in the same place, crossing a beaver pond, trying to find a deer whose the transmitter started going off. The animals had obviously been killed. And so I was trying to find it, and I crossed a beaver dam, and I went through, and I went like to my chest, and I pulled myself out, booked for the shoreline, started, building the fire, because now I did have matches.
Lesson learned.
Had a little pack, had some extra
There we
gear
go.
in there and stuff, and got right to the bank and started, building a fire and got the fire going, started stripping clothes off, and it was like, wait a minute. I'm not like really cold and I'm not like super wet. And so I'd only went in and come right back out. So the water wasn't against my skin. So that one is like, whatever, like you stepping in the hole. I mean, okay.
Yeah, mine was
Truck's
like life
there
or death, but
and it's
it
not,
sucked.
but there's the only reason why I survived that deal when I went completely under. That was, oh God, because there's no way I should have,
Oh yeah.
And I asked Tom, I said, like, was there a really big hole? And he said, no. He goes, it was like twice the size of your body. The diameter of your body. He said, 1 minute you were there, the next minute you were gone. And so that was a bad one. That was, and the other bad part of that too is that after I was okay, I brushed it off.
Yeah.
Like no big deal. Like, I got wet. I went through the ice, So I guess I tried to teach him, don't do some of these things.
Always have a spud bar.
Yeah, that'd probably been a good idea.
If you're in a state where you can ice fish and it's early ice, bring a spud bar or an axe or
Yeah,
anything.
yeah. But yeah, it was fine. I was messed up for a while. It took a little while to.
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing how you can, whether, you do a couple cookies in a vehicle on an icy road or something like that, and you just kind of go, whoa, okay. And then you reflect on it later on and you go, oh, man, that could have been really bad.
Right.
Like that's, and another thing, I've not gone through the ice, but the biggest danger in those situations isn't hypothermia, it's drowning. Like that's your scenario is the worst of the worst. Like you go under that ice, you're not coming back out.
Yeah.
Right. And that's,
Well, if Tom hadn't been there, I wouldn't be here.
yeah.
Right. Because even if I could have got back up on the ice, there was nobody around to help.
Mm-hmm.
When he was barking in my ear the entire time.
Keep moving, moving.
Keep going. And I was probably cursing at him, telling him I was fine, but I don't remember how far it was, to the truck from where I went through, but half mile, 3/4. I don't know. I don't remember, but I do remember going through the ice. I can still see it right now.
Yeah, and for a little perspective, that Kilkenny National Forest is kind of Mount Washington area, and so I know a lot of people are a little bit more familiar with Mount Washington, but they have some of the highest recorded wind, like non-storm wind speeds. I think the highest recorded non-storm wind speeds at Mount Washington of anywhere in the world, like that's ever been recorded. And they have some of the most extreme winter temperatures up there of anywhere, that's not polar. So it's easy as a North Dakotan to kind of, downplay some of the winter experiences that other people talk about from out of state, because it is pretty extreme here compared to, a lot of other places. But that area specifically of New England is it's right up there, no question about it. And the snow falls a lot more, so in a lot of ways it's worse. But yeah, just for an idea of the kind of conditions that area has. I haven't spent any time in the actual national forest up there other than driving around a little bit with you, but I've seen a little bit of it, and it's nasty stuff. So I mean, I don't know how I'm supposed to follow that, because I don't really have any any tall tales or any interesting stories where anything bad really happened, and I guess that's a blessing. I can't really complain. We've all had those, like you said, a couple of times. You spin out on the highway or something, and you're like, "Oh man, that could have been bad." So that's nothing new. The one that comes to mind that I think is more of a funny story than anything, but definitely was, just kind of had some kind of, protection from God over me, I think, at least to some extent, was the first fall I was in Montana for college. I was starting from scratch. Like, I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't know where to look. I didn't know where, the deer would be, the elk would be, the bears were, whatever I was looking for. And I just kind of was like, I know there's grizzlies around this area. I don't really know where they are per se, but I'm just going to assume that they're probably a little bit everywhere, which is a good assumption to make. It's not necessarily true, but it's a good assumption to make. And it's it's definitely more true now than it was, 5 years ago when I was out there. But I found a spot that was, an hour or whatever from Missoula, where I was living at the time, that there was pretty good amount of public land on Onyx. There were scattered trees, timber, and it wasn't super steep topography. So I was like, I can handle this kind of terrain, and I can figure things out. And I went there a couple days, and during beginning of rifle season, and there was sign all over the place, and I didn't see any bear sign to speak of, so I wasn't really concerned about it, but mostly deer sign. So I was like, I'll just, keep poking around here and see what I can find. And I think it was the third day I went in there, and I'd been doing everything alone. This is during COVID. I moved out there. I knew, I think, one person in the whole state of Montana at that point. So I didn't know what I was doing. Didn't have any connections. I wasn't even telling anybody where I was going, because I didn't really, I could tell these guys, back home here in Bismarck, but it wouldn't really make too much of a difference. Looking back, I should have, because at least that way they can call somebody up and, if they don't hear from me. But anyways, went into this spot, ended up shooting a deer kind of right at last light, probably 3 miles from the pickup, kind of up in the hills, in the foothills of the Bob Marshall Wilderness, which, for anybody who's familiar with Western Montana, is notorious for one of the densest grizzly populations outside of Yellowstone, which I didn't know at the time. But anyways, last light, I just thinking the way I did here in North Dakota, get down to the deer. He only went 30 yards, quarter him out, throw the whole thing on my back, and I start hiking, and it's pitch black. I got a little bit of moonlight, but I'm just walking along, and I know I'm talking out loud to myself,
So you didn't have a headlamp for?
I did have a headlamp, but I had it off because generally we'll walk, unless it's really, really dark, we'll walk with our headlamps off just because it's easier to see,
You need to explain, I don't turn my light on because I can see better.
Like your
when
eyes,
you're
your eyes
walking.
adjusting.
So put that in perspective, because most people are going to go, "What?"
So your pupils dilate, obviously, when there's there's no light source. Your pupils get bigger, and so the longer that you're, usually I think they say it takes about half an hour once you get away from a light source. That's from the FAA with pilots and stuff, but. I think it's half an hour. Once you get away from a light source, your pupils will dilate, let in more light. So then, although you may not be able to see as much detail, you can see things further away. You retain your depth perception to some extent, and that's just with stars or with snow. Snow is incredibly helpful.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. The moonlight, all of that stuff makes a huge difference. Doesn't always work, but the other thing that I learned through with the FAA stuff for being a drone pilot is that red light apparently does not make your pupils dilate, or it doesn't do it to nearly the degree that other colors of light do. So that's why, I always wondered why every headlamp's got a red light. Well, apparently that's because you can look at a red light, have a red light source, and see what you need to see, and then when you shut it off, it doesn't take you 10 minutes to get your eyes adjusted again. It takes seconds, which is why all of your wind towers and your cell towers and all that have red blinking lights, because they're not messing with pilot's vision. That's why planes have red lights, which they have red and green because they have directional lights, but that's why they're those colors, is because those are the red more so than green, but those are the colors that least affect your pupils at night. So anyway, you turn that light on, you might be able to see what's right in front of you, great, and sometimes you need to do that. But as soon as you turn it off, you can't see jack.
Yep.
So, you know.
And you can only see as far as that light goes.
Right, and there's,
that's
there's
another
nothing
big
wrong with walking with your light on, but you have a cone of vision, and everything outside of that is completely black. And, you know, like I said, it doesn't work all the time. We've been fondly sharing a story of last year. We went checking cameras, and I archery hunted the evening, and it was like this weird kind of overcast, not really fog, but like low cloud base rolls in like right around last light, and I think maybe it was raining or sprinkling rain or something a little bit. It was the darkest night that I have ever experienced, which isn't saying that much, but I believe you agreed, and you're more than twice my age, so I mean, that's saying something. Somebody who grew up in the mountains, in the timber, you know, where it is a different kind of dark when you get in the timber anywhere you go, whether the moon's out or not. But to hear him say that it's the darkest night, I mean, it was to the point where, like, we had our lights off, so we're just letting our eyes do the work, and it was like we're like falling over because we can't tell how far away the ground is. Like, it was so dark. It was unbelievable. You could just barely tell if there was like a rock but you couldn't tell how far away it was. Like, you'd step and you'd kick the ground, or you'd like almost fall forward because you were losing your depth perception. We ended up walking out most of the way with our lights on that night because we're gonna break our ankles. Like, we're gonna hurt ourselves. It was weird, like just the weirdest thing. That, you know, that was one of those times where, like, when I'm with somebody, it doesn't bother me. But if it's dark like that and you're alone, like, that's one of those nights where, like, that hair starts to stand up on the back of your neck a little bit. Like, there's no grizzlies around. There's no lions around, most likely. Like, nothing's going to mess with me, you know? But, like, there's still a factor of being 2-3 miles from
the unknown,
breaking
too,
an ankle,
right?
and it's pitch dark and no phone service. And, like, I might have to lay here all night. And even though it's 50 degrees, I can still get hypothermia and all this stuff, you know? So, anyway, so that's kind of what I was doing, just walking along and with the lamp off and talking to myself, because that was one of the, you know, that's kind of bear 101 is you play music, talk to yourself, make noise, so that way you're not surprising these bears or anything. And I'm cruising along, make it back to the truck, no big deal. I mean, I'm exhausted, but it was a good night. I think it was Halloween night. I went back and went to a bar or something after that. It was a great night. But then the following summer, I had met a bunch of people, had some friends. I was talking to some locals and stuff. Somebody who actually lived out in the town that was pretty close to where I was hunting. And for any of you Montana people, it was Sealy Lake area. And that area, turns out, is very notorious for grizzly bears and bears of all kinds. Very dense populations. People, like, just driving up and down the roads through that area will see grizzlies off the road, just standing there eating berries or doing whatever they do. And so, granted, nothing bad really happened, but, you know, there was a couple of bear attacks in the area around the time. A friend of mine was a first responder to one of them, you know, and just a horror scene kind of thing. And the classic kind of story of people from out of town leaving food out, you know, when they're camping. And I think these people actually saw the bear prior to, like, going to bed for the night, and they decided to stay in the same spot, and the bear came back, and the rest is history. But the point of the story being, like, I didn't really know until a year later that I had that kind of encounter or potential encounter. And I was telling people about it, and they were just like, "You're insane. Like, no, you, like, don't do that again. You know, don't go back there alone, especially, like, it's one thing to go with buddies, but don't go back there alone, and don't hunt alone very much at all if you can avoid it out here. Like, that's just not something that was very common, at least for the people that I spent time with." So that was kind of a wake-up call for me, as I was like, man, I've been really lucky to hunt out here for a year and really not have any encounters. That's not to say it's something you can count on, but you know, that was just a time for me that, like you said, especially with the car thing, same type of deal. Like, looking back on it all that time later, you gain a little bit of knowledge perspective on it, and it's like, oh man, like, I really lucked out. Like, things could have been a lot worse than they were. And so that's probably most of those stories for me, is I've just gotten really lucky. I've been blessed to be, you know, well taken care of by God in all of these different situations. So I don't have as many scary stories that I can think of. But
well, when we're in those situations, you kind of forget, knowing Knowing your parents here, especially your mom, I bet she was probably praying a lot for you.
Oh, they bought me a big, huge 44 Magnum
Yeah.
before I moved out there. So that as a gift, as like a parting gift, I guess. So I knew that they wanted to make sure that I was well protected.
And by the way, she did not know what he was doing.
It's true. It's true. I don't know if still don't know if she knows about that one, but she'll find out after this.
She'll find out, but I don't.
I'm carrying dinner on my back. Hey, Grizzly,
Yeah.
come get me.
So, if you can take any 4 lessons from this episode, don't cover holes with snow or ice. You can't have enough tow rope. Always have a spud bar, and don't hunt alone in bear country.
Yep.
We're teaching.
Pretty much.
I like it.
Not that there's a lot of bear concerns in North Dakota, but
No.
you never know. I mean, at the rate it's going, 10, 20 years, we could be seeing some grizzlies out in western North Dakota.
Well, I
Depending
don't.
on
Well, there's they weren't grizzlies, but my other son Eli and I were hunting for his youth hunt 2 years ago, and we were pretty much on the Montana border, and this game warden, and we were in the middle of nowhere, and this game warden came in. I think he was lonely, and so it was like the same. He's a great guy. And we talked to him for a while, and he had said that there was, in his, so he'd been a warden for 10 years, and in the previous 8 years, never had a reported bear anything. And in the last 2 years, I think it was getting close to double digits, and not in the same place, like, continuing. It was black bears, right? But, for western North Dakota, that, as far as I know, that's super rare. So, they're migrating, right? More people in Montana and those areas, right? And they're going to find some place that's a little more wild. So,
well, and more bears too. I mean, especially out there with the grizzlies, or like we were up where most of my extended family's from in the Northeast, that northern New Hampshire area. In September, I'm lucky enough to go on a bear hunt up there, and I was able to fill my tag. But they were just, everybody up there is beside themselves with the number of bears. And I mean, it fluctuates anywhere you go. Like, that's not necessarily out, just like completely unheard of. But, even like from what I talked about with my dad, like when he was a kid, for as long as he can remember, like you'd see a bear once in a while. It wasn't something you'd see super commonly, and even on the years where they were, the population was higher. But up there right now, they're just saying it's like you can't hardly go anywhere without running into them on the road or something. And I know that, like you said earlier, that the grizzly encounters out west have definitely been increasing, and there's been reports of grizzlies popping up here and there in eastern Montana, and they just aren't getting hunted. I mean, the grizzlies aren't getting hunted at all. So, that's, I think that to get it off topic a little bit is one thing that we could probably do a series of episodes on. But, this kind of perspective that these animals, especially with predator hunting, I feel like that we can just, the best practice is to just leave them alone, and we can't touch them. Then nature will balance itself out. But that's true about nature. It does do that. But, us as humans and infrastructure and all the things that we bring into the mix is the antithesis of nature. So, when you bring in something that's going to completely throw off the balance, like it's going to take way, way, way longer for a balance to be found. And that would be assuming that the same amount of people stay in the same place with the same amount of area that they're covering. But that's constantly changing. So if you keep changing variables, it's never going to find a balance. So like it's our responsibility as hunters to be providing that balance through managing wildlife, through hunting, and that's the job of our game wardens and biologists through the state and the federal government to do demographic studies and make sure that the number of animals that are being taken is helping to balance the population. And I think that's a big problem with why you're seeing these grizzly bear numbers and grizzly encounters just go through the roof, is that for so long the effort to let the population rebound has resulted in the pendulum swinging a little too far in the other direction. So again, I don't want to take this too far off the rails because I know my dad and I at least could go on about this for a long time about a number of things, whether it's forest fires or, anything. But I think that's another important thing that I can't really reiterate enough is that we can't have a perspective that we can just sit idly by and things will work themselves out when it comes to nature. Like we intervene, it's not that I have some savior complex or something with nature. It's like, but we as humans intervene. So we have to do something to make up for that intervention. You know what I mean? And that sometimes is more intervention, but in the opposite direction.
Yeah, it's managing a resource. I think, Matt, you would, a long time ago, probably when ice fishing for the first time, you had talked about that and how you need to manage a resource, right? And you shared, and I think that was the first podcast, the Genesis story of God gave us the outdoors to steward that, not to take advantage of it, not to, to be a good conservationist and to steward it. And yeah, to your point, it is sometimes it can be as detrimental just to say, nope, we're not even going there. We're not touching it. We're not doing anything to it. Especially if you're talking, high fence, whatever, that's even worse if you don't let critters roam. So yeah,
I'm grinding my teeth right now because.
Well, let's hear it.
No, you don't.
No, let's hear it.
We don't have time.
We got 15 minutes.
Well, yeah, I shouldn't get going because I'm going to get wound up.
I said, this could be, could do a whole nother, we could do probably a number of episodes on this.
The bottom line is, and we definitely should come back for a show just to talk about these things, fires or wildlife or whatever it might be. But we are part of what is today the natural order. Oh, yeah. And it's our responsibility, like you said, is to take care of that and manage those populations like Ryer was talking about. And we are here. That's not going to change, at least for the moment. Mm-hmm. And we need to also manage those wildlife. And, grizzlies and wolves probably are the two biggest topics you'll see in the news if you follow it at all. And, they were endangered, threatened, nearly extinct in the lower 48. And now they are thriving in some areas to the detriment of, not only cattle, but they're killing people.
Yeah.
Well,
bears.
The wolves.
Bears. Yes, sorry.
No,
and
that's right.
This is coming from a person who absolutely loves apex predators. I think grizzlies are the coolest thing, and wolves, etc. But as far as I'm concerned, is that it's our responsibility to manage those animals, and I think the folks that don't agree with that give the impression that we're going to extirpate them from the face of the earth. That's not at all what any of our managers, any of our biologists, any of the federal government, fish and wildlife staff, and decision makers want. They want to see a balance. Mm-hmm. And so these are not teddy bears. When we talk about grizzlies and stuff, it's not a teddy bear. That is one, ferocious animal, and that's not to say. And I love them. I think they're cool.
I think everyone in here would agree with that.
And I want them to be here, but when they start having that kind of impact, attacking people, affecting people's livelihoods, so on and so forth,
there is a line.
There needs to be a balance, and so the animals get desensitized in a lot of cases, and I know some wildlife professional out there may not agree with me, but I think they're desensitized, and I think that a little bit of correction would not only help with that, manage to balance the population, but at the same time, there's a lot of revenue that could come back, and it has to be used for wildlife conservation, right? And through license sales and so on. So anyway, I will get wound up. My heart's racing right now, and I've been grinding my teeth while you guys were talking, and I'm like, I think they're poking the bear. They want to get me
Another
going.
bear thing. Here we go.
Maybe that's the episode 5, poking the bear. That's what we'll call it.
We got to start making up titles.
But you're talking about first, and we've talked about all these things you don't do, right? And we just went through some stories where we did some really dumb things.
Oh yeah.
I'm a little concerned that people are going to get worried. Don't go in the outdoors because it's dangerous. Well, it is dangerous.
And keep in mind, these are like the worst of our worst experiences over however long we've been doing this. Like this should not be your average outdoor experience, and if it is, there's probably other issues we have to look at first. Yeah. Such as decision making and a number of other things.
Yeah, I mean, if you spend enough time out, like something's gonna go wrong eventually, and I think that there's that. Speaking of balance, I mean, maybe I don't know if this is something that everybody relates to or not, but for me, there's always been a level of like, I don't know if you could call it fear, but
respect,
some kind of respect or anticipation of bad things, like not to the point of ruining it for me because I always enjoy it, but like especially when I'm alone mostly, but also sometimes just anytime, like if I'm driving a pickup on the ice, even if I know there's 3 feet, or if I'm going up in the mountains or going in an area where I know that there's gonna be inclement weather or there's predators or whatever it is, like I always kind of have this, it's kind of hard to describe, it's like this pit in my stomach, but I think that there are instinctual fears, if that's the right word, that are kind of instilled in us that you maybe don't really feel unless you spend time in the outdoors, especially in riskier situations or whatever. I always felt a little bit weird about it when I was younger. I always felt like, oh, I'm just being a wuss or whatever. But then when I got out to Montana, I was like, this is something that is helpful to me because it's keeping me alert when I'm tired. It's keeping me paying attention to things that I may not be familiar with. Like, so I think that, obviously there is a hair standing up on the back of your neck moment where everybody knows, like, I shouldn't be doing what I'm doing or I shouldn't be where I'm at. And I'm not saying don't listen to that. But I think that there's a benefit in having like a kind of primal level of fear or respect for your surroundings to be like, listen, I got to mind my P's and Q's because if I don't, I can find myself in a really crappy situation really fast. And I think that partly from hearing stories and partly from, good influence, I think that's been in large part why I've been able to avoid most of those, dangerous situations is, not because of my own skill, but just because I've always been like, maybe a little too apprehensive of what's around me. And sure, maybe I've missed opportunities because of that. But I don't know. I mean, I think that, that is something that for like through some kind of primal reason is put into us for there's a reason for that. And I don't know. I think that's something that it's really difficult to get in tune with because we're so comfortable day to day, like the way that we live. But that's something that God has given us, biologically from the beginning when we had to survive, off of the land and these hunter-gatherer communities and wherever in the world they were. Like there's at every point in the history of each lineage, there was some time where people had to hunt and survive, And so I think that there's remnants of that are left in us that we don't. I think everybody's got it. You don't necessarily know about it until you have to use it. So anyway, it's hard for me to articulate, but that's something that I've been trying to learn more about in myself. And, I see all the nods, so it makes me feel like you guys probably are
if you're listening to
picking
this
up
on the
what
radio,
I'm putting down. But
I think you're spot on. I mean, you don't put yourself in a dangerous situation, but the old foxhole converts, right? When you put your dependence on God in a scenario, and that can be like, when your kids are born, talk about, I mean, that's not an outdoor situation, but man, talk about as a man, one of the most helpless situations you're in, right? It's just like, Lord, I can't do anything, in this situation. I can, I can encourage and I can pray, but that's about the extent of what I can do right now. And situations, whether it's outdoors or something like that, or, everybody's 4-wheel drive vehicles, all-wheel drive this, and then you got people doing, 85 miles an hour on the interstate, right? That's just as dangerous as anything we're going to do. So, to your point, be smart, right? Pay attention to your surroundings. That's a huge thing. Whether that's, whether you're in the outdoors messing with apex predators, or you're just going to notice so much more, and you're going to get so much more out of it if you're in that moment versus being distracted and blundering around in the woods or whatever.
So you just answered it, right? Because I've been sitting here as you guys are talking. Prior used the word fear. I think it's respect. And my fear for what we're talking about is we're going to discourage people. But you guys just put it in perspective. Get in your car and drive home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Way more dangerous than going into the outdoors.
Right.
When you think about, the being around all the people and the vehicles and people watching their cell phones and checking email and stuff. Sorry, that's a pet peeve of mine.
I've never seen anyone check their email. That might be. I've seen people check.
Yes,
their
you
text.
have.
Checking their
I've
text.
never seen someone check their email while driving.
But anyway, I just want to make sure people don't think that that we are
like crazy dangers chasing
danger
people.
junkies.
Yeah.
Because being in the outdoors, we're not danger junkies at all. Because most of the time, it's
very.
What's
peaceful.
the worst thing that could happen? You get hooked on some barbed wire, you're crossing the fence or something like that, or step in a hole or something.
One thing I will say though about that respect, or whatever word you want to call it, is that I've learned that it sounds kind of paradoxical, but that's probably one of the main things that makes me want to go back out.
Yeah.
And it's not like, that's how I know that it's not like a normal fear. It maybe it does sound like a little bit like of an adrenaline junkie thing. But I think it's that primal, I've used that word probably too much, but just connection with your surroundings, with the outdoors, with nature, that it feels uncomfortable because it's not natural to us anymore. I mean, it is in the most basic sense, but like compared to our day-to-day lives, it's out of the ordinary. It's unnatural. But I think I think Cameron Haynes talked about it in a podcast or something I saw a while back, and he articulated it really well, but kind of described how like that little bit of fear that you feel is like, it's kind of like the old ways, if you want to say it's drawing you, and so I think that there's a line between that moment where you've gone too far, you're headed in the wrong direction, and that feeling, and that might be pretty hard to discern when you first start out, but it's always better to go the safe route. So if you ever don't know, just go the safe route,
Yeah, the stories we just told are us not doing the safe route. And
so, that's just one of the things I think you have to learn for yourself, because everybody has a different scale. But, some of those people that get into sticky situations, it's because they either ignore that sense or don't have that sense. And then it's like you just are so confident that everything's going to be fine, so it's almost good to be apprehensive. In some situations.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and the one thing that I think about that with is, it's never happened to me, but I'm sure you guys have heard stories specifically with mountain lion encounters where people will say, like, more than anything they've ever felt, they'll just be walking down the road, whether hunting or they're hiking or whatever it is they might be doing.
Whatever.
Yeah, and they all of a sudden just feel like really like almost like sick to their stomach, and the hair will like they'll feel the hair stand up in the back of their neck. They'll get goosebumps or chills, and they just never know. They don't know what it is. But then they later find out, or a few minutes later or next day or whatever it is, they find out that there was a lion there. Mm-hmm. Whether they see tracks on their way out that were stepping in their shoes, or they see one up in a tree, or somebody gets a picture of one, like whatever it is, like that seems to happen more often with lions than anything else. I don't know why that is, but that's kind of that moment that I think it's like that's when that, that's just proof that we have an instinctual, because there's so many times that happens to people when they don't actually know why. Mm-hmm. You don't hear about those stories because they just say, oh, I got really freaked, and some people keep going, some people turn around. A lot of times it's inconsequential, but, that I think is one of the coolest things that gets overlooked about spending time in the outdoors, is that those God-given instincts and learning to listen to them.
And I'm sure you guys have all seen that too. Animals have that too, when that's one of the things that like Eli and I, we almost got busted this year, and I didn't share that part of that, the deer that he shot, but this muley was circled around, and all of a sudden is like 85 yards from us, and it's walking right at us, and the whole time there's nothing between us and him, and the whole time I was just, don't look at him, don't look at him, don't look at him, peripheral vision only, because if we would have just done one of these, he would have busted and we would have been screwed. We wouldn't have got anything. But yeah, that's the same thing. God instilled that in us as predators and prey, right? That's an innate thing. And that's when you're a little kid and you're playing hide and go seek, that was one of the things that you start to figure out. You just get a sense that something is looking at you.
Yeah.
Right. But anyways, no,
Everyone good?
You can be good.
All right.
I'm good.
You're the boss.
Yeah.
All right. Well, then we're done. Catch you guys in the next one.
There you go.